So it's time for episode 4 of The Last of Us called Please Hold On to My Hand, where Joel and Ellie make it all the way to Wyoming, they find Tommy, and they live happily ever after. No, that's not what happens. All hell breaks loose. Now, like always, this is a review of episode 4 of The Last of Us, which means if you haven't seen it, I'm going to spoil things because there's really no way to talk about this episode at all without spoiling it, at least some of it. Once again, this show is really paced well. Uh, like I've said before, I'm watching it, I'm enjoying it, and then suddenly it's over, and it's something that is not easy to do. It's not easy to pace a show this well. And it really is. It's like there's always something that's driving the plot forward, even when there's downtime. It's really, really well done, and I have to continually commend them on that because it's just not that easy to keep that up week after week. On the road to Wyoming, Joel and Ellie have plenty of time to talk about things, and you kind of get their different personalities, where they come from, all that sort of thing. They're starting to really learn about each other, and they warm up to each other. And that's one of the things that throughout this episode it gets a lot stronger. And it's one of the things that it really is a beauty. It's just a beauty to watch. Now, when they get to Kansas City, they find their way blocked. They're trying to find their way around by going through the city, and they run into trouble. Somebody's basically set a trap for them, and Joel has to deal with their new friends, and Ellie comes to his rescue when he's basically put down on the ground and about to be choked out. It's one of those things where even though I can appreciate how well it's done, it's also stuff that I've kind of seen before. I mean, I'm just being honest. There's a lot of this that I've seen before, and it just, it's well done, but yeah. I do enjoy this one exchange between Joel and Ellie when, he's basically talking about how it's not fair that he had to basically rely on her to do that, and she's too young in her age and all that stuff. And she says, "It's not my first time hurting someone." It's one of those things that kind of makes you, it's sort of a strange thing. I think most parents probably feel this, where, their kids are having to go through things that they never had to go through. And in fact, there's some things that I feel like kids are growing up too fast. So in a weird kind of way, I'm not a parent, but I figure that's how it is. But it's in a weird way that this is sort of the same sort of conversation that I feel like, I mean, not the fact that you're hurting someone, but just this whole idea of people growing up too fast and not being able to enjoy their childhood and all that sort of thing. Now, this group that they find themselves against, basically just by defending themselves, it's Kathleen and Perry are the two main characters there, and Perry actually played Tommy in the Last of Us game, so it's kind of interesting to see him in this role. It's kind of a cool little thing, but they're on the search for not only the people that committed this violence against their people, but also these two, Henry and Sam, that are supposedly missing. We don't know a whole lot about them. We're kind of thrown into their story without any sort of setup, so I don't know if they're called anything. I don't know. Apparently, this is a new group in a new location, because Kansas City was not on the road in the game, apparently. But anyway, they come across this room with this sunken in floor, and it moves, and they close the door, and they're like, we can't tell anybody about that. But I just thought that was a really kind of a cool scene, and it looked awesome. I mean, it looked real. Now, Joel and Ellie share this joke on the floor, the diarrhea joke. And I mean, I've heard it 100 times, but it's one of those where, because they get a kick out of it, I get a kick out of it, and their acting is really, really well done there. And then the episode ends with Henry and Sam finding them. And we're on to the next episode, I guess. The interesting thing about The Last of Us, other than the incredible pacing, the way that everything plays out, it's the production design, the backgrounds, the visual effects, everything that looks run down looks real. It doesn't look like something that's just faked. It looked like, how did they get all this stuff done. I mean, it looks that real, which is a real testament to everybody working on post-production on this series. Now, I don't know if you watched the little kind of behind the scenes of the episode thing, but we don't really learn a whole lot except, you know, them sort of breaking down the episode we just watched, and it's like, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I get that. But one of the things that Neil Druckmann said was really, really cool, and it sort of explains a lot about his position and I guess his work on the games. He says, I love humanizing villains, and so much of The Last of Us is about people that have to make choices, and whether they're heroes or villains really depends on your perspective. I think that's really interesting, and it's one of those things that kind of is the theme of The Last of Us, right? It's not just, you know, The Last of Us is like the last of the survivors. It's The Last of Us as humans. Like, we're losing our humanity by what we've had to go through here. And I think that's a really cool way to put it. And it also explains a lot about, well, his story choices going forward. Episode 4, called Please Hold On to My Hand. What did you think about it? I mean, me personally, like I said, it's sort of a transitionary kind of episode where now we're moving some plot along, and we're not sitting down and having a sort of almost like a conversation like we did in the last episode. I mean, that last episode was just amazing. And now we're sort of in sort of plot territory where things are going to happen. And it's just, you know, let's get to the meat of the stuff. But I'm interested what other people think. So let me know down below and we'll talk about it. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.